welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast. My name's Dane Groeneveld, CEO of Huddle 3 Group, and I'm really pleased to have Dr. Dale Marsden here today from Tomorrow's Talent. Welcome, Dale.
Hey, thanks so much, Dane. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, you bet. It's been really fun. It's probably been the best part of a year now that we've been bouncing around on some ideas around your business, my business, community projects.
I think you're right.
Fun working together so far.
Agreed. Very much so.
Yeah. So perhaps for our listeners, you can give us a little bit of a background and introduction on your sort of career and personal and business story.
Sure, you bet. Yeah. So 27 years in public education. So got my launch after going in the Air Force for a few years. A police officer when I was a kid said, hey, you need to go in the service, get your head screwed on straight. So thankfully followed his advice and ended up in public education. Absolutely loved teaching kids, did that for a few years, and then got into administration, principal of schools, and then ultimately followed a superintendent who was one of the most effective superintendents in the state, a very successful, high-performing, high-poverty district, and followed him as superintendent. And an incredible opportunity in a year-long overlap of leadership, so a transfer of knowledge, ability to have a strong leader pour into me, and a lot of other. That's where I learned to lead. That's where I learned about teamwork and what it takes to get real results. And then in the middle of that journey, after about 4 years, I got recruited into San Bernardino City Unified School District, which is one of the 10 largest districts in the state of California, 50,000 kids, 8,000 employees. And so took that journey, and our team was able to grow the graduation rate from 66.8% to 93.6%, doubled the number of kids ready for college, and then grew in our pathways for students from 5 to 53, connecting students in a high poverty environment where 92% of students were traditionally marginalized, 90% of students were poverty, connecting them to opportunities that were high growth, high wage, high demand industry sectors, just to really reinvent the community. And so that led me to a space that I've seen our system has sorely missed, which is the ability to bridge students at every level, whether it's K-12 or community college, four-year universities, to what's next, or even students that aren't in college or going on the college track, really just hardwiring students to what's next. And so that's led me to what I'm doing now with the company Tomorrow's Talent, and where we bridge young adults to passion and help education industries connect to the real world of work. And so that's what I'm doing now.
It's a hell of a track record.
Thanks.
And I love what you said about working with kids. I personally find it such a rich learning ground to be working with kids that are learning for themselves and seeing how teams come together in the classroom, out of the classroom. Yeah. And you see so much potential for the future. Also some of the challenges.
Nothing more gratifying.
Yeah.
Nothing more gratifying than seeing a student launch into something that they grow in it's in their passion area. So their interests, their talents, their aptitudes are like, and just knowing that something exists beyond them. Especially students of poverty, they just don't have the experiences and schemata and sometimes the family relationships to introduce and get them started. And so this ability to connect students socially and get the social capital connection with next is really important.
That is, and we don't think about. I don't think we think about our schools as the organizations that they are. We think about our schools as where my kid goes or the experience they have in the classroom. We don't think about just how heavily the interaction is and how many people. You said 8,000 employees. Yeah. That's a lot of people doing a lot of work that is behind the scenes, community partnerships. And you reference these pathways. So from 5 to 53, could you perhaps share a little bit more about what it takes to create those pathways and the role that they play?
Yeah, you bet. And so, in my role as superintendent, I also sat on the county workforce board. And in that role, that helped me to get a peek behind the scenes of what are the high growth, high demand, and high wage industry sectors that are growing and emerging within not only our own county, but within the state of California. And then also broadly, what do our students need to be prepared for the real world worldwide? Yeah. So not just the jobs that are here, but the jobs that we could bring here if the students had the knowledge, skills, and abilities. And so we then worked with local employers and started with our county as an employer actually and saying, okay, could we tie these pathways for students to job-alike internships? Yep. And so students who were, say, at the healthcare pathway at one of our high schools would get a paid internship with a local county hospital and get 120 hours of experience, get their feet wet, make sure that's really what they want to do before they go launch off on this college track or a further track.
Yeah.
Because, the data tells us now that when students achieve the holy grail of public ed and achieve their bachelor's degree, 53% of students are unemployed who have bachelor's degrees. And so we have a lot of work to do to bridge the education systems to the real world of work. I'll never forget, had met with Jim Clifton, CEO of Gallup, in his office as we were talking about this at lunch. And, Gallup had surveyed the entire, planet for a lot of things. But one thing they did that I found very interesting in his book, The Coming Jobs War, is they surveyed all the chief academic officers and asked, how well are you doing? And these are K-12, community college, 4-university chief academic officers. How well are you doing at preparing kids for the real world of work? 96% of us said we did a great job. Then they surveyed the real world of work. It was 11%. So the divide is huge, and it hasn't gotten smaller. No. And so our systems are losing the ability to authentically prepare students for what is the real world of work. And there's just such a big disconnect. And so if we don't do something urgently, I'm afraid, and engage our students young and often in real experiences, not just to build the social capital experiences, or knowledge and in relationships, but to build authentic experiences. What's next? I think we're going to fail our system. Our system is going to fail. Our system is going to fail students more. Yeah.
It's interesting. I can't remember who it was I was speaking to the other day, and they said success really comes from a well-defined mission. And that statistic, 96% saying we did great and 11% saying it doesn't work, it kind of shouts out there's a lack of definition of what we're trying to achieve here.
Very much so.
It's not that people on either side aren't doing their absolute best, but we just never created that shared reality of what is preparing these young people for the future of work.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And when you think about creating that definition, that's going to take a team, because we can't create for today's world of work because we're creating kids that aren't going to be in it for 5 or 10 or 15 years.
That's exactly right.
So I think it's going to be interesting, considering what those pathways are. And you made a really good statement there. It's not just about the work we have today, but what work could we bring to the region? I think that's the definition of good planning, isn't it? We're going to become good at these skills, and we're going to bring this type of work into region.
That's right.
So when you think about that, Inland Empire is obviously where you're doing a lot of your best work.
Correct.
Where do you see the story for that particular geography in terms of industries that will make up the future of work, the future of industry?
And that's a great question. And I think a couple points I'll just reflect on. And one is I was sitting down at lunch one time with Jack Dangerman, who's the CEO of Esri, one of the second largest software company in the world, who's based out in Redlands. And he's like, Dale, what is the Inland Empire known for? And we have trouble, I think, answering that question. Right now it's a lot for logistics and manufacturing. But one area that I think recently took interest, and the governor of California and this is from the governor of California, has an interest in seeing 500,000 apprenticeships by 2029. And there's been a lot of folks have seen the teamwork and of interagencies working together in the Inland Empire like never before. And so there's a lot of folks that have come together and have the ability to have that collective capacity to move things forward. So the governor chose to recently launch, and we're a part of this with the Launch Apprenticeship Network, the Inland Empire Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Initiative. So, there's a real need for cybersecurity in every industry, profit and nonprofit. And so this is an opportunity, as I mentioned before, to bring something from the outside in. And let us, and as going back to my conversation with Jack Dangerman, I think what we should be known for is the human capital of California. And so building the people with the kinds of skills and knowledge for jobs, careers, entrepreneurial leadership, those are the kinds of things I think we're poised to be working on. To take the Inland Empire to the next level.
And I think those human skills are the ones that they create a lot of agility. They're very transferable depending on what technology or what hardware or what else it might be, what legislation drives the success for industry in the future, that if the people have those skills, they can move with that success.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So the cybersecurity apprenticeship, for listeners out there, like, what does that mean? What's the story of a young person getting into that pathway, and how do they sort of translate through school experience to career?
That's a great question. And it's a beautiful illustration of this is at one of the high schools in San Bernardino City Unified. Royal Valley High School has about 476 students in their cybersecurity pathway from 9th through 12th grade. So there's a lot of kids.
That's a lot.
Information technology, cybersecurity, digital design, areas that are related either tangentially or directly to cybersecurity.
Yep.
And so the students get a sense of those experiences up front. But what really makes that experience, I think, very meaningful is several of the teachers have actually come from industry. So they had a choice. They could, and this is terrible that they have to make this choice, but they could work in industry and make six figures, or they could work in education, maybe make a little bit less.
Yes.
And invest in our youth. And that's often the case. And the students see a model of the real world right in front of them as their teacher, and able to learn the kinds of skills to be successful in the real world of cybersecurity. So in those pathways, they have solid curriculum that's woven together, and working with other leaders in the industry, like our local Cal State San Bernardino is a national center for cybersecurity education. So they're seen as a beacon, really. My own son went through the program, and I often tell people, they used to brag about it, say, hey, they're second to MIT till they beat MIT. They're just a solid program, one of the top in the nation, a force to be reckoned. So our kids have that in their backyard, and the expertise from that campus comes to interact with the high school teachers regularly. And so that transfer of knowledge has been real important in an environment where 90+ percent of students are in high poverty environments.
Yes.
They're getting exposure to a high growth, high demand, high wage industry sector where today they can start earning six figures often just right out of their college experience. And so what's next for them after high school, while they're in high school, is actually engaging in a paid internship with local employers. That's what we help to bridge them into. And then ultimately growing that into a registered competency-based apprenticeship, where students get all the certifications that are necessary to be successful in that world, where the employer hires them on their payroll as an apprentice, and there's a soft transition to what's next for them in permanency. And so that creates that experience, and it's been exciting to see. We had one of our students who was formerly at a Royal Valley High School, who then went on to Cal State San Bernardino in their freshman year, was actually hired as a pre-apprentice with our local East Valley Water District. And so it was a fantastic opportunity to see that experience take off. And now Metropolitan Water District's working with us to take that to the next level for students and LA Unified and some other areas across the state. So that's an area that's growing. It's a desperate need for every industry, as we've seen even in the media. And so it's an attractive area for youth. It's sexy. It's something that's fun for them, and they can make a lot of money if they get into it right. And you don't have to be a coder. You can enjoy multiple aspects, from the legal aspect to the hardware side of it to the coding side. There's so many things students can do in that space that it's
so the apprenticeship broad. Has some breadth.
It does, very much so.
Which I think is the best part of all good apprenticeships, is that it's an opportunity to learn your way into some transferable skills and then to specialize.
And we've got to do a better job at it in high school. We do not do this well at all as a state. We have probably less than a dozen students that are high school students in registered apprenticeships as a state. And so we're woefully lacking. We have a lot of work to do, and we're hoping to move that dial.
Yeah. You touched on high poverty, particularly for your district, but that is a problem in a lot of districts across America. And that becomes a barrier for young people being able to take time out to be in apprenticeships, particularly if the time's not being afforded to them in the traditional school day. Are you seeing good evidence of teamwork, partnerships in the community to create funding for these apprenticeships so that more kids can take the time?
We are working to stir that up, and that is occurring more than it has in the past. There's a lot of research to support that it is really a social justice issue if students, especially at the college level, are not engaged in paid internship experiences and apprenticeship experiences. it simply can't happen. Matter of fact, we're seeing it in high schools even, where students will turn down a paid internship because they have a part-time job.
Yes.
It pays just a little bit more because they need that to help the family put something on the table.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of work to do to change that. But there are foundations that are emerging, that are growing out of local communities, that are taking some of that role on, paying students a scholarship, for example.
Yeah.
And trying to find creative ways to pay students so it doesn't interfere with their financial aid, which is an interesting piece of it. We hadn't thought about it either.
Yeah.
There's all these nuances. And I think that as communities do, matter of fact, I would have to say that unless communities come together as a team and really follow what we learned over a decade ago from the Stanford Collective Impact Innovation Review. They've got to come around to a common agenda, a clear communication system. There's got to be a backbone organization that helps facilitate this teamwork and this relationship and the structure. And that's really what we emulated in San Bernardino City Unified. We really worked in, essentially the school district was the only show in town. So we started as that backbone organization. But after being even the topic of study, we felt we can't continue and sustain that. So that's shifted over to a nonprofit foundation called Uplift San Bernardino, which actually is the backbone. That is their entire role, is to serve as an independent backbone to facilitate these relationships so that the community can grow its muscle around working interdependently, and that all these elements or these random acts of excellence become aligned acts of excellence.
Yes.
And the left hand talks to the right, and people know who's who. Matter of fact, I've heard it said in Cincinnati, where some of this kind of collective impact effort took off, that nonprofits would come and speak with, their philanthropy, and often the philanthropy would say, well, you're connected to this project here with what they called Thrive in Cincinnati. And if they said no, they didn't fund them, So
wow.
I mean, if you
There's
get to that level of sophistication where you have a backbone organization that says, hey, this is how we do things around here. We're all on the same page because we have one vision in mind, which is to help produce a productive citizenry and take our community to the next level. When you're clear on that. And I think that's really coming back to why the Inland Empire is really set and poised for some tremendous growth, is just because of that.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
That's neat. I mean, on Backbone, it, for some reason, visually or not, it takes me to blockchain, right?
Yeah.
And I've been playing around with a few of our team members, a few of our partners on what is the future of that emerging technology, tokenization, tokenomics, really incentivizing people to come and do certain things. And really, if I understand it correctly, I think some of these token plays can actually create almost like a parallel economy. So I almost wonder, when you said funding, incentivizing these students in the community, getting behind it, whether there is a token play there too in the future. Because to your example with Thrive, if there was to be a token, which was the apprenticeship token, and certain employers in the communities would, contribute either their time, their resources, their facilities to create apprenticeships, and they would get tokens for that. And then you would give tokens to kids for completing the courses. All of a sudden you can create a backbone that has actually it creates certification for what people have done, but it also creates some discounted opportunities, some restricted access for those people that go through the pathway.
I think there's some real opportunities with that. And you asked about, are people funding this earlier? I'll tell you, I have to give a shout out to East Valley Water District because I mean, we helped them write board policy where now they have written into their regular day-to-day operations that they will hire and pay interns as part of their natural course of doing business as a public agency. And I really think that's a great next step. And I've talked about some early with the Secretary of Labor for California. Some early legislation should go into play where if you're a public agency, that should be kind of a required opportunity and hardwire that into your policies and your practices, that we will engage the youth at every level, 16 to 24-year-olds in paid internships that are job alike to their interests, talents, and aptitudes. And I think if we do more of that, and I'll give you an example. The San Bernardino City is the seat of the county of San Bernardino. thousands of wonderful, high-paying technical jobs. People drive into the city every day and drive right back out. And most of the 200,000 plus residents don't even know these jobs exist. And so that was the beauty of having students in Java-like paid internships, is they were then getting exposed to and becoming aware of, and their families too, of, hey, there's some great opportunities for you here right in your own backyard. Yeah. And so I think that's the way to turn local communities around, is them coming together as, a force. I mean, when I was superintendent in San Bernardino City, we would actually have every year a community engagement for excellence conference. About 1,000 people would come. Yep. It was great. We'd pack out the orange show, faith-based, community-based organizations, service organizations, your public sector, private sector, school leaders, parents, students, all under one roof. And we would sit and talk about what is our plan to ensure we get from where we are currently and to where we want to go, and get their fingerprints hardwired onto our plan and start building those relationships. And it was a powerful event every year. Just the energy that was around it, the speakers that we had come were just phenomenal and helped to, tie kind of this work together to help us renew our commitment every year to, hey, these are the goals we set. And that's what helped us get to where we got to. Yeah. Not overnight, but over time, because everybody had the same message. Everybody, that vision, the message was owned, known, and energized by all. You could ask parents, what's the vision here? The vision was, making hope happen. Yes. That was what we were about. And so it just, it's important.
I think there's a big message as well for community members to try and find out where those conferences are, where they can participate with the school systems and with the other big community groups. Because I was fortunate enough to join a breakfast when I was last in New Orleans with Jefferson Parish, where we're doing some projects with Dr. Gray and his team down there. And they had the Fast Forward program. And it was great to see the local, universities, community colleges, employers all in the room around, I think they called it their Fast Forward program. But I walked away from that with a killer soundbite, which is we need to bring, and I think I've shared it with you, we need to bring our kids out of school as employed, not just employable.
That's exactly right.
And it's very powerful.
They get this right in Switzerland. And I was talking about this a little bit at lunch, and there's, a permeable system of apprenticeships. When you're, ninth grade, half the battle in high school today is keeping kids in school, and keeping them engaged. And it's just, it's an uphill battle. Yeah. You're talking to a person who's been 27 years in public education. I mean, so I was the choir, we were there. And students need to be engaged. We need to touch their hearts. They need to know that what they're doing is going to tap into the real world. That disconnect I mentioned earlier. We've got to do a better job at engaging our kids early and often. I mean, I'll never forget a walk and a tour of some of our elementary schools, where we would walk into one of their advanced manufacturing labs in an elementary school and see students that were kindergartners, first graders, third graders using the adult version of computer-assisted design software. Yep. They didn't even know it was this big, grand, software. They just did it. Yep. And then they had a 3D printing of something, or, other advanced subtracted manufacturing kind of play, or printers. And they were creating and doing some wonderful things. They did that in healthcare, where we partnered with Loma Linda University Health, and students had on their medical labs, and it was the eye care lab. And, they learned about the human body and the medical space, and getting them, keynote speakers coming in, them going out on field trips. I remember one day I was going to a meeting with the president of Loma Linda University Hospital, Dick Hart, and I'm walking out there, and here's one of our high school classes, the entire class. They were a middle school class, the entire class. They're touring the campus and getting an understanding of all the health career fields that are there. Mm-hmm. We've got to do a better job at bridging and being, consciously active in our efforts to connect and deliberate to connect our students to really what's in that real world. And we need to think more about getting our teachers. They want to be connected to the real world. Yes. Our teachers are hungry, I think, for externships, the ability to experience what's going on in the real world that they're preparing the students for, especially if a teacher comes out of, an education school and they haven't necessarily come out of industry. Yeah. We need to do a better job as education system leaders, even creating those experiences for our teachers.
So you mentioned externship. So is that teachers going out into industry?
Exactly.
I've not heard of that.
And this has happened. We've had teachers go to the water district to learn about water operations and the behind the scenes and what's it take to build these highly technical degrees and skills, and the sciences that are there. Teachers going into externships with the university healthcare systems and et cetera. And so it's manufacturing. We've had teachers go out in manufacturing and see what that looks like. And, it's such a need for that to close that grand divide between the 96% and the 11% as I mentioned earlier.
No, and I think it's a great play on teamwork, because you can't just say that team does this and this team does that, which I think is the 11% problem. You've got to say, we're one team. Let's bring some of your folks over here and our folks over there and create that shared reality, create more awareness of what the next few critical steps are.
Yeah. And none of this, in San Bernardino City, I was there 8 years. And so as I was, the average tenure of a superintendent in California or in the U.S. is about 2.7 years.
Wow.
And so, staying as long as I did, what we know is even if you're a mediocre superintendent, research says the longevity of the superintendent has twice the impact on student achievement than any other comprehensive reform, meaning the ability of a superintendent or a leader in any organization, a business, you take this to any Fortune 500 company, the longer you can have a leader stay or keep stability of leadership and ensure a strong knowledge transfer, the longer that organizational experience results. And so what we got didn't happen overnight. Yeah. It happened over time. I came into San Bernardino City, our team worked together in a toxic, very low trust culture and environment. Yeah. And over time, we built into a high trust engagement culture and empowerment culture. We actually took a survey when I first arrived called Power Over versus Power With. And it was fun. Every 18 months we did the survey again, and to watch that dial move from a Power Over organization to a Power With organization, because we were empowering leaders. One time I had our safety officer give me a call. He apparently needed the superintendent's advice on a technical safety issue, which I have no training or knowledge for. And I said, this will be the last time you call me. Don't call me anymore. I trust your judgment. You can let me know what you're doing, keep me informed, but I trust your judgment. That was the role of leadership at that time, is let people know that, empower them, help them to have the skills necessary to do the work in the right way. If you don't feel they do, then teach them those skills and have adequate knowledge transfer, so you can have a gradual release of responsibility. Let them take that on. It does go slower at first, but then you go way faster in the long run. Yeah. And so that's, what we did a lot of was working on defining what is trust, building it, codifying, putting language to it, really talking about we asked everybody in the organization, what do you want to see, hear, and feel in a district of excellence? Yes. What do you never want to see, hear, and feel? What do you always want to see, hear, and feel? And we codified those values and beliefs, and we put those values and beliefs before us in every meeting we had. So look, this is who we said we're going to be. How are we doing at these things? And constantly kept checking our actions against our vision, our values, our beliefs, our objectives. And if we were out of line, we were honest with ourselves. If we weren't meeting our goals and objectives, we were honest with ourselves. The first year, I think we got to where we were by luck, I think. But I remember, sitting at lunch with our cabinet planning team, and to get, one of my education assistant superintendents got the text that our graduation results came in and they'd gone up, and we were all like, hey, this is working. Yeah. And so it's just a team, and I knew this intuitively, but when you saw the results match up against it, that tells you that, hey, this work of building a team pays off. It wasn't Dale that got the results in San Bernardino City Unified. It was Dale and a team. Yes. And we go much farther, much faster with others when we don't care who gets the credit. Yeah. And we build the capacity of the people around us. And also we do the hard work of leaders of having those hard conversations that if people aren't living up to the standards, 47% of our high-performing people are looking for their next job. Yeah. If we don't actively and engage them and renew that relationship with them and remind them about how powerful they are to the organization, and tap into them for more people like them. Yes. If we forget to do that, we're really losing the opportunity to double down on our most effective talent. And then secondly, if we have low performers in the organization, everybody's watching us as leaders.
Yes.
And if we don't address that swiftly, and they say hire slow, fire fast. If we don't address that swiftly, we're not going to make the results we're hoping to make. You've got to have those hard conversations of helping people improve their performance, clarifying what are expectations to do that. And then if those expectations aren't met, creating a kind way, but it maybe isn't the best place for people to be in. And those are important conversations to have, because if you're going to have a high-performing team, you've got to have people that want to win, want to know how to get there, are hungry, humble and smart, as some of the authors out there have written. Lencioni, it's such a great tools. That's neat.
I was going to ask you definition of good teamwork, but I think you just provided an excellent example. And funnily enough, it ties in. I had Dave Lemkool on the show the other day from Seamless AI, and he's got a military background and now is worked in government contracting now in SaaS. And I asked him about his view on good teamwork, and he said trust and mission, which is really a lot of what you've just explained, coming into the group and building that trust. I love the power over versus power with. That's really powerful.
And that, a lot of times I'd get some flack from my leadership team. I'm like, hey, Dale, just make a decision. I'm like, my decision is to involve people in the decisions that affect them.
Yes.
That is my decision.
Yeah.
And so now here's, what do you think?
Which is hugely empowering. With 8,000 people, that's a lot of change to drive. Did you have any key rituals, key moments in time that really allowed you to drive such a big shift?
Yeah, I remember it vividly. Coming in, my first year, I had been trained on facilitating teams and, those kinds of efforts, the skills and the tools been wired into me as a teacher and as a principal, as a leader. So we didn't really have that capacity with the organization. So at first, when I first came in, I was facilitating the meetings. I was doing the hard work of leading the meeting, but also facilitating it, which are two distinctly different activities.
Different.
And some of the tools I used, one was what I called an issues bin, where you put a blank chart paper on the wall, put sticky notes available and writing utensils at every desk, and simply made a comment that anybody can have, put a sticky note up or have somebody else put a sticky note up, questions, comments, concerns, or kudos. We divided that chart paper into quadrants: questions, comments, concerns, or kudos, compliments. And the first meeting I had, it was packed with sticky notes. There were all kinds of questions and concerns, and not very many kudos and compliments.
No.
And this very first meeting I had, I think I probably shocked some of our leaders, because I brought our union leaders in. To join our management team. That had never happened. We had our union leaders then attend every management team meeting we had there forward. Why? Because I said, we don't have anything top secret. We're all here serving the public in the education system and the students that we serve. So let's do this together. And do you know that over not overnight, but over time, those sticky notes disappeared. People just didn't put stuff up because they were satisfied that when they talked about it, we were acting on it. If they did put a sticky note up, and when that happened, even the first few weeks of my being there, I would read every single sticky note, and I would say, did I answer that to your satisfaction?
Yes.
And then we'd put it to the side and make sure we followed up with it later if necessary. And I think that activity of them seeing, hey, we know we got problems. We acknowledge those problems, but we now take those to action and actually deliver on those. I think that's what builds trust and credibility over time.
Yeah.
And then empowering. So once I felt like the team had those skills, I stepped back. I was in the background. By year 2, I'm watching others facilitate the meetings, do the same things, and I'm just guiding on the side. To me, that was, that I think is what takes a team to the next level, is when you take the time to build the capacity of the people around you to be better than you are. Hire people that are better than you are. And then, once they're empowered, just kind of get out of their way, and stay involved and engaged, but let them do what they need to do.
I think that's a really, I've never seen that quadrant before, but I'll use it. It's a really powerful way to start a climate change. in a business and the way that leaders work with their teams.
The other tool we used quite a bit, and this is really adapted from the Army, called the after action review.
Yes.
So after any major event, we just simply ask those three questions. What happened, what we just experienced, what did we learn from that? And then the third question, based on what we've learned, what are we going to do next time?
Yes.
And that really helped us. And every time I use that tool, I would preface it, because I had the military background, I'd preface it with the military experience. And I'd say, look, a lot of times in war fighting, people go out, somebody gets killed by friendly fire.
Yeah.
And then you all come back into a room and you're trying to debrief that. There's a lot of emotion in the room.
Yeah.
So this process is designed to leave emotion at the door.
Yeah.
And just deal with the concrete facts, because let's face it, we have to go back out there into the battlefield right now.
Yeah.
And we want to be better. We don't want to repeat what we just experienced.
Yeah.
What are we going to learn from that? And now let's get back out there. What are we going to do? And that's the way we approached it. Not everything, but major things we went through. We did an after action review after every board meeting, every major event. When there were catastrophes, a school shooting once, we did several of these things we went through. Yeah. And those always helped us to lead our community. And plus it serves as a third point. So, as a leader, you don't want to get shot.
Yes.
So if you're in front of a large group of people, you have to have a piece of paper behind you to be your third point. And you got to direct all that energy and attention to, real outcomes that people can say, hey, we're doing something about this.
Yeah. So, I'd never heard of the third point before, but now I know what it means.
Yeah, there you go.
You talked about when you had these groups together, bringing the union leaders in, it being all about serving the public. That's an interesting customer to have in mind in some respects, because the public is so broad and diverse and multifaceted. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about how that translates. How do you stay close to the public and the key groups in the public to understand, the mission of the school from year to year? Yeah,
and this is just this old school management by walking around. I mean, just getting out to our parent group meetings, our community-based organization meetings.
Yes.
Talking to people, going out to school sites, meeting with students, pulling students aside and talking to them, talking to their families when they're walking the parking lot, living in the community where the school district was, and running into people in the shopping store and being willing to take the time. Just to talk to people, talking to the custodian on the campus and saying, hey, do you have everything you need to do your job? How's things going around here? Yeah. Really caring, no matter where people sat in the organization or in or out of the organization, they had the same level of respect, same level of voice, same level of input. Often we would take the input of somebody that had absolutely no, monetary benefit per se to the organization, but they helped us improve and get better.
Yes.
Sometimes we had advocates pound on the board meeting, or boardroom. And I said, that's free assessment, free auditing. I said, take advantage of it. There's a grain of truth in there somewhere. Something's not working in our system that's causing this emotion. So how do we capitalize on that and build on that? And, I think just treating people as you want them to become.
Yes.
And living in a way collectively with people that honors everybody, no matter their race, their creed, their belief system, same as yours or different, color of their skin. I mean, to me, that's America. Yeah. That's what's made us great, and when we can be a fantastic country when we emulate those models. Yeah.
The community's something, if I think back early on my life, I took a lot from community. You'd learn, you would have fun with, whether there was a festival or a sporting event or whatever else. And the more I mature in life and develop deeper networks, deeper skills, the more I realize that community is both a great teacher, but also it's kind of like working with the kids that we talked about before. It's very rewarding to be out in that community and really getting a sense of what's going on and where you can bring some of your skills back to kind of pay it forward.
Absolutely.
And it's exciting, I think, now more than ever before with technology, that you can have, it's not just a walk through the yard or bumping into people in the store. I mean, there can be so much connectivity in the community.
That's exactly right. And tapping into all those mechanisms is important. I remember one year using our social media once we got our graduation results, and I really wanted to champion our team because, it's a lot of hard work to go from the lowest performing large urban district in the state to one of the larger performing. Yeah. But we quantified it. and we got that message out publicly because the cost of one dropout to our community was $250,000 over the lifetime.
Wow.
And when we quantified the sheer number of students where that change, that delta existed between, graduate so now not only did you go from a student who was not graduating, who would be a deficit to the community, now you're graduated, you're going to add value.
Yes.
We would share that economic data out loud with our families, our community to say, hey, look, we are this work is creating an economic driver. When you go from a community with 66.3% of students graduating from high school before Dale came and before our team got activated to after where we're at 93.6% of students graduating, that's a big delta to see of a productive citizenry contributing to society. And that message went out broadly. I talked about it everywhere I went in all forms, social media and so forth. So I think that's another effective part of being a team is getting your message out.
Yes.
It often is said, if you don't get your message out, no one else will. Yeah. And so being able to share that, a lot and letting people know, hey, we're getting better around here. And I want you to know because, and what we saw is, when I first started in board meetings, the board would see a packed boardroom of angry people. Mm-hmm. And we actually had meetings in the, year 8 when there was before COVID, we had almost no one in the boardroom. Yes. Very few people. And to me, that's a sign that, hey, everybody's saying you're doing what you need to be doing. You're
trust
doing it right.
Trust
is there. Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's really neat. Yeah. Well, you've given me plenty of great material there on leading good teams. You clearly did a great job there, Dale. As we think more towards your current shift, we've had some interesting conversations on, what it is to move from an 8,000 staff organization that you're leading to a startup. So tell us a little bit more about, your journey into the world of a startup.
I'll tell you, it hasn't been easy, and I have a whole new respect for people who have been in the private sector now than ever before. So 27 years in the public sector, and now starting a company from tomorrow's talent from the ground up has been no small task. And so Dane, I got to thank you for your support and help and wisdom, because what I've recognized, I can't do this alone. Yeah. So a similar approach, I've really tried to surround myself with people that know more than I do, so I can tap into them and learn also. And I know I can't be all these things. And so I have to find the right people to help me, because I want to go at the speed of vision. Yes. And things don't work like that. Yeah. You've got to go slow to go fast. And so that's what we're doing now, but it's going well. We're small, but we're mighty. We're beginning to, start doing some good work. And our vision is to be able to touch 1 million students and get them engaged in work-based learning, touch the real world. So that's what we're doing. We're connecting education systems to the real world of work. Yep. Doing that at every level, K-12, community colleges, 4 universities. Very excited about that. The education system leaders we work with are hungry for this. Yes. They really do want their students to authentically engage and connect in what's next for them. Yeah. They want nothing more. It's just how to get there. They don't know how to navigate that. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing now. Yeah.
It's really neat. I think it's very timely, and the way that you're doing it, starting in the schools and then bringing the employment opportunities, the training opportunities in, is very unique, because the hard part, I think, in this world is knowing how to work with schools. And obviously there's always difficulties in how you do that appropriately. We're dealing with minors. Right. There's a lot more legislation and scrutiny. So right. What you're bridging is this knowledge, this network there in the schools out into the wider community ecosystem. So I'm very honored to have the chance to work with you on it. And I'm excited to see where we can bring some more of those connections, because it could make a huge impact.
It's mutual. I'm grateful. So thank you very much.
You bet. Yeah. With the next, 6 months, 12 months, a year, I think you've got some pretty clear pathways. If you look way out there, 5, 10 years, you've gone slow. Now you're going really fast. What would success look like for you? What might look really different in terms of the way that kids are having that authentic real world experience, building that muscle memory of what it feels like to get into a workplace and do good work and be rewarded for it?
Yeah, I think for me, the vision would be that this becomes much like in Switzerland and other countries. This becomes the new normal for us, where we start to see, hey, there's actually an entirely untapped and unmined potential in the wisdom of our adolescents and youth. We're not tapping into the knowledge that exists, and I'm convinced if wise companies will begin to play in the sandbox with our youth, they're going to bring innovation and ideas like they've never seen before. Yeah. Because they exist. I mean, the students can come up with stuff that we're just not thinking about. Yeah. And we don't sometimes honor and cherish the wisdom of our adolescents. Yeah. And so 16 to 24 is that kind of age range that, is the sweet spot right now. And so I see in the vision, as I mentioned, 1 million students, and that to me means a whole lot of school districts and a whole lot of employers are embracing this as a new normal, that, hey, we just do this around here. When we're talking about building our workforce, we're thinking today about tomorrow's talent. We're planning today for tomorrow's talent. Those are the things that we have to think about. We can't just think about, hey, I've got a position that's open, I need to fill it. I've got to start thinking ahead. So business leaders that are wise are thinking 5-10 years ahead, and us likewise. And then the fruit of this labor should be that our employers are beginning to think, okay, I want to see my talent, down in middle school. Yeah. I want to see my developing talent. Yeah. And then as they grow and we've interacted with them, by time, I'll never have to worry again about where I'm getting talent from, because I've already got a pipeline established. And it's just, that to me would be no small joy. I love not only thinking about that pipeline of talent, but what you touched on as far as innovation and ideas for innovation. Because you're right. These young people now have got so much of the world at their fingertips. And we haven't even really seen things like the metaverse play out, where they're going to be able to walk around our businesses virtually. Right. But you just think the insights, and those insights could drive product development. They could drive the way that we work. I mean, we've seen how much change has come through COVID. Well, you think about this; they're unencumbered. So we're thinking about family, colleges, mortgage, houses, all these other things that are going through, marriage, life, and so we're encumbered. We got a lot of stuff going through our head, and we're trying to run successful companies. Now you take a young person who's just getting started. The whole world they are full of ideas. Yes. They just need a place to release those ideas. Yeah. And why don't we just, wake up and give them an opportunity to do that? That's my thinking. Yeah. And that's exciting. Yeah. And it's, I think it can be very rewarding for all parties. Oh, no question. No, that's question. Neat. Well, it's been a great conversation. It's flown by. Yeah, it sure has. How do people best find you, Dale, if they want to learn more about what you're doing or be part of some of Tomorrow's Talents project? Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so you can reach out to us on our website, tomorrowstalent.org, or me directly, Dale, at tomorrowstalent.org. It'd be fine too. Great. I'd love to talk with anybody about all this. Very cool. We'll do this again soon. Hey, thanks so much, Dane. Thanks for the invite. It's been a pleasure. You bet. Thanks. All right.